You will never become a really good guitar player if you can't play by ear. The good news is that it has absolutely nothing to do with having perfect pitch. It has nothing to do with being born with a special gift or a special talent, and it has absolutely nothing to do with hours and hours of practice to acquire that skill. And if you don't believe me, just give me a few minutes, because by the end of this video, you will be able to play by ear. First things first, let's do a quick test. Repeat after me. I play a guitar. Seriously, try it. If you were able to repeat that, you can play by ear. Now, there are two main reasons you're able to repeat what I said. First, the sounds I was saying are recognizable sounds. So you didn't really have to think about how to replicate the I sound. You know that if you got to start with your mouth semi-open, put some air through, and then change your throat to produce that E sound. All of that is extremely natural because you've been hearing the English language for so long and you no longer have to think about the mechanics of saying these sounds. The second reason you're able to repeat what I said really quickly is that my original sentence, I play guitar, sounded very much like a sentence that did make sense. I play guitar. Your mind made the link between something that did not have any meaning, but resembled something that did have meaning. Music is a language. It works exactly the same way. Let's talk about our main instrument, which is the guitar. As you're learning how to play the guitar, you are learning how to replicate the sounds that you're hearing on albums or in live music, or even something that you hear in the background as you're shopping in the grocery store. That really should be your main goal when you're learning how to play the guitar, to replicate those sounds so that you don't have to think about how to replicate those sounds. Now, just to be clear here, I'm really talking on a micro level of recognition and understanding the sounds that you're hearing and translating them through the guitar. I'm not talking about scales, modes, chords, or anything like that. I'm really talking about simple things like this sound, for example. Every electric guitar player knows that that sound is a bend. And that's translating the mechanics of something you're hearing. That's exactly what you did mentally when you repeated after me that original statement that didn't make much sense. You knew right away how to replicate those sounds. Now, the second thing is attaching unknown to known. When using words, we're going to try to go with the meaning of each word and the context of the sentence that you're trying to replicate. Musically, it's a little bit different because a lick can have multiple meanings. So what we're going to do here is attach what you're hearing to a scale or a key or a mode. Now, just talking about modes, scales, and keys reminded me of when I was learning how to play the guitar in the mid-90s. So what drew me to guitar was the sound of it and the bands I loved. Aerosmith, Guns N' Roses, Iron Maiden. At the time, those were heavy metal bands. I guess now you'd call it almost classic rock. But I just loved the sounds of those bands. And I would try to play their solos, read tabs, and it was a lot of fun. And then I got introduced to scales and modes. I did not like it. See, I didn't like it because I was really afraid that understanding all that world would take away from the feeling I got when I was listening to those bands. I took a music theory class in 1998. I kind of had to. It was part of the curriculum in the music school I was going to. And the first theory class I had was very overwhelming. So after class, I went to my teacher and I told him, "Sir, with all due respect, I think I'm going to drop out. I'm afraid that understanding music theory, studying modes, scales, and all that is going to give me more of a mathematical approach to music. And I'm afraid that understanding what's going on is going to take away from the feeling I have when I listen to those bands I love." I got kicked out of school. No, I'm just kidding. The teacher did the opposite. My teacher told me, "You know, David, I can completely relate because that was me when I was your age. And now I'm a music theory teacher. And guess what? I still love those bands I used to listen to. I understand what they're doing, but I love it even more. And that's exactly what we're gonna do here. We're gonna talk about scales, keys, chords, some theory concepts without the heavy-duty theory elements. When you're learning a new scale, I really want you to engage your ear and pay attention to the way that scale makes you feel. The feeling you're getting from a scale is going to give you the context of what you're hearing. And that is how you're going to make that connection between the unknown to the known. The more scales you learn and understand, the easier it will be. I'm going to simplify the process a little bit for you. The first thing to do is to determine if you are listening to a pentatonic-based idea or a non-pentatonic-based idea. And to be fair, most of the things you're going to listen to are going to be pentatonic-based. We might have a few additional notes here and there, but we're going to start with that pentatonic most of the time. But not all the time. So we're going to make a quick test because I'm pretty sure you can already classify anything you hear in one of those boxes. Pentatonic, non-pentatonic, which is also known as diatonic. Here's my first example. That is pentatonic. That is also pentatonic. Diatonic. Pentatonic. Okay, you get the idea. I'm sure that you can do that very easily. Let's start with the pentatonic. Now for this, I want you to grab your guitar. You already know the context, which is going to be pentatonic. And I'm going to make things easy for you. We're going to play in the first position of G minor pentatonic. You have the context. You know the area of the fretboard we're going to play in. Here's the first thing I want you to figure out. No peeking in my guitar. Try to figure this one out. The only things you had to focus on was the rhythm and the direction of the notes. Fairly easy. This was our tempo. The rhythm was something like this. Da, 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 da. And the direction was all ascending. As you were figuring this out, you subconsciously associated sounds with frets and strings. We landed on the 4th string, 5th fret. That's the sound of it. Now I want you to replicate this. In this case, I started with the note I finished, 4th string, 5th fret. The rhythm was exactly the same, so you know what your right hand should be doing. The only thing you had to focus on was the direction. La 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 ba ba bum. And because you know your pentatonic scale, you know the system, the canvas that you're going to use, very easy to play. We could keep doing this over and over and it'll get faster and faster for you to replicate that. Now, what if the piece you're trying to recognize is a diatonic? Well, this is where we need to talk about numbers. We're going to use a system called the major scale to translate any diatonic idea you hear. The major scale is made of 7 notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And we all have that sound really ingrained in our mind because most Western music is based on the major scale and its variations, also known as church modes. For this to really work, you need to be able to sing the major scale. Now, when I say that, you do not need to have a great voice. You don't even need to have perfect pitch as you're singing that, but you need to be able to recognize that if you sing over this, it doesn't match. Now let's just try it together. Here's our starting note. Let's sing it together, starting with the number 1 all the way to 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You need to be able to do that from any note. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now here's the test to know if you really know that scale. We're going to sing it from this note, but I'm not going to play the notes of the major scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If what you were singing didn't quite match what I was playing, congratulations, you are sticking to the major scale, while I was playing something slightly different. That note that clashed means that we are altering, changing one of the numbers to something else. Whenever that happens, it means that you need to change the number you are singing to match what you're hearing. If you need to adjust your voice a little bit higher to match what you're hearing, we're using sharps. If you need to lower your voice to match what you're hearing, we're adding a flat. At this point, you can play by ear. Don't believe me? Let me show you. It's going to be right here. Make sure you have a guitar. I'll see you there.